I don't often do flights because I do prefer to do rums individually so that you can get a single focus review on a single rum at a time. But in this particular instance, because I'm introducing a company as well as some of the things that it's doing, it is more important to me to give you a sense of the progression of three rums that they have in their stable that are really quietly amazing in their own way, and I think attention should be paid. This is a company called Rainforest Distillers out of the Philippines, from one of the islands called Mindanao, relatively recent, formed in 2021 by Mark Schultz, who is a Filipino gentleman with a German name. Yeah, no, fellow German, good. That's really quite funny when you think about it. They have a brand called Casa Caña, which of course in Spanish is House of the Cane. But they may be one of the first distilleries in the Philippines to concentrate wholly and exclusively on three different aspects of rum making. For one, they are absolutely ferocious about trying to find new cane varietals to try and play around, whether, depending on the sugar content of the cane, how indigenous it is, how much hybridization has occurred, whether it's new or old or whatever. They have muck pits. Yeah, they're trying to channel a little bit of Jamaica in there somewhere, and they do age some of their stuff. They do have some unaged stuff. We have a little bit of each here that we're going to talk about. All of this is absolutely fascinating. Now, we do have other companies in the Philippines that make rum. Tanduay, of course, is the biggest in the world as far as I'm concerned in terms of its volume of sales, but there's Limtuaco, there is, Don Papa comes from there, or supposedly comes from there. And I think there's one called Kasama, and there's Luisita, which I have some reviews of. I have to really get down to that sooner or later. But it just goes to show that there is a strong rum production culture in the Philippines, and it shouldn't be sneezed at. So this is a micro distillery that simply just dares to go in a different direction. And that's something that, of course, anybody who's talked to me knows that I enjoy, because we've had everything, or almost everything, from Jamaica or St. Lucia, Barbados, Guyana, wherever else, North and South America. If you want to try something new, this is a company you got to watch, because they really are quietly impressive. And if you think that I am the only one who thinks this way, just keep in mind that in 2025, Habitación Vella issued one of their rums, because it's pot still, right? Which is what the Habitación Vella line is all about. They issued one of their rums that was 14 months old, and conforms to all of these specs. There's only one review of that one out there, and that's by a friend of mine called Wei Xiang Liu, who writes for 88 Bamboo in Singapore. And Wei Xiang kind of ran through that Habitación Vella, but he didn't get a chance to try these, and I have. So I'm going to give you all three at the same time. What are they? Well, the first one is a white, unaged rum, 6 months rested, called the Blanca. And it is made from cane juice. Their fermentation period is about 6 to 10 days. And once it's rested, it's bottled, and there's nothing further to really say about it. I think the varietal that they use is something called the Nanay, which I'm not sure what it means or anything, but it is what it is. And it's bottled at 47.9%. The second one, that's this one. This one is called the Morena and bottled at 52%. This is an aged rum, just about 18 months in ex-French oak Chardonnay casks. The difference about it is not only that it's made from cane juice and then rested for 6 months and then aged for 18 months, that is to say, right? But that they use muck in the process. So again, the 8 to 10 days fermentation period is there. They're using a commercial yeast, unlike the Cairns boys, who basically are playing around with Pombe rather than Saccharomyces, or the commercial yeast that are available. Mark is not playing around too much with the yeast yet. He may yet do so, because I do understand that they talk to each other back and forth quite a bit recently, and ideas and ferments are just kind of part of the conversation. The third rum that I'm going to talk about is what's called the single cask. It doesn't have any other name. It conforms to many of the other specs, right? 8 to 10 day fermentation. It's 57.8% cane juice derived, 8 to 10 days. Did I say 8 to 10 days fermentation? I might have. I'm talking very fast here. Lots of coffee today. And then it was aged after 6 months of resting. It has been aged for 4 years, which means that it was probably one of the very first rums that they produced that they liked enough to put into a barrel and put through the door. Right, that's pretty much it. Three pot still rums, one unaged and two aged. And honestly, I'm impressed with what they've done. So let's try the Blanca first. The Blanca conforms to just about every unaged agricole style rum that hasn't had enough taming yet. In other words, there's something a little bit uncouth about it. Now, to me, the poster child for that kind of profile is probably the Clarin Saint-Just. And there's, of course, a lot of similarities between the two, except that this one is just a little bit more refined. It is really quite creamy. The nose has a ton of biscuits. It's got some petrol. Wow. Acetones. It's sweet. It's got some Danish cookies in it. It's got a very interesting sweet and sour profile to it for something that's just been rested but not aged. There's a lot of stuff coming out here. And, ooh, you'd be surprised, but there's some sweet soya sauce here. And what it really reminds me of is the Guyanese Chinese fried rice, which locals in Georgetown, at least, used to call a measle. It's actually both a noun and a verb. So if you're going out and get one of these cheap $5 fried rice paper bags, then you're going out on measle, Yeah, that's what this reminds me of. And I think if my brother down there ever listens to this, he's going to have a good laugh about it. It develops over time to become just a little bit more sweet. And overall, it presents a certain elegance, which is not something that you always see with unaged agricole style rums. I think the last one of its kind that I tried that was something like this was the De Paz, which was a parcellaire, also with a monovarietal, which this is. Yeah, beautiful nose. I mean, I can't say enough nice things about it. The Morena, which is, as I said, the 18-month age thing, which had a little bit of muck in the ferment. This one, at 52%, that might actually be the perfect strength for it, largely because it allows the flavors to pop without them being overwhelmed by any kind of roughness or crudeness of the distillate itself. Again, we're talking about a pot still. I think they use 2 plates for this to get a slightly heavier profile on this thing, right? But it's got a little bit of the 3 components that I tend to look for in rums like this. So there are certainly vegetal notes to it. There's a whole bunch of grass and herbs and dill and so on, a little bit of parsley, perhaps cumin if you really push yourself hard. But there's also a little bit of fruits, dark red fruits, grapes, cherries, that kind of thing, which aren't entirely sweet, but have got a little bit of sour left in them, just, a tartness of Laban and yogurt, that kind of thing. And there's a bit of ginger involved there too. I mean, the nose really is quite amazing. I would not have expected this from an 18-month-old rum. But it just goes to show, I think, that fermentation is something that more larger rum makers could pay more attention to get something to really pop. Yeah, it starts to get a little sweet, cookies and so on. But somewhere in the background of all of this is also a little hint of rotting oranges. That's the funk and the dunder and the muck pit that they're using to get to bootstrap their fermentation just a little bit more, and get better butyric acids and esters and what have you. I don't know what the ester counts are for any of these, but wow. Okay, so it's important to understand that this is probably the closest to the Habitation Vellier edition that came out, and it's just aged 4 months further, right? Because this has been released in 2026. The 4-year-old, now we're starting to get into combination territory, by which I mean the barrel is starting to, again, ex-Chardonnay, French oak, right? The barrel is starting to take on more of an influence here. You're getting a little bit of vanilla, a little bit of caramel, salted ice cream, that kind of thing. There's olives, there's brine, there's a little bit of cucumbers, pimentos, as well as really good olive oil. The stuff perhaps from Palestine or from parts of Italy where they really do it artisanally and organically from start to finish. It's that kind of thing. There's also raisins and red grapes. That part is still there. There is leather. There's a nice scent of brand new leather. I'm not talking about, absolutely nice Corinthian leather kind of nonsense, but I'm talking about the sort of thing you get from a really top-end purse that's made from all natural materials. Or even when you go into IKEA and you sometimes see those rugs made out of freshly tanned leather hides, that kind of thing. I think all 3 rums present a very interesting segue into where possibly rums could go in the future. You know, the agricoles do their thing and sometimes they get aged, but they don't play around too much with the long period fermentation or the playing around with dunder or anything like that. On the other hand, the molasses-based rums tend to be very straightforward. The Spanish style is all about barrel management, and some of the Jamaicans do their dunder and their aging and their distillation, and others play around with the stills, and still others, basically just work with molasses from wherever they can get it, although there's a movement now to get molasses from locally. But here we have a company that's trying to do all these things at the same time. And that's why attention should be paid, because it combines the best of all to come up with some new way of doing things that still produces rums you can recognize as rums, but not only takes it in a new direction, but gives you tastes from all of the above all at the same time. And that's why I really like them. With respect to scores, I'd have to say the Blanca, because of the creaminess of the taste. I have actually tasted these all before. Yeah, it's actually, all that roughness and crudeness of the Sajou style thing starts to disappear. And it has a certain creaminess to it, a smoothness and elegance that you don't always find in these kinds of rums. And I'm going to score this one at a solid 84. And I think that's really, really good stuff. That's a good score for it. The 18-month-old has many of the same notes that I noticed before on the nose, but it's a little bit salty, a little bit sour. It's got some cherries. And again, I mentioned that rotten Hogo style of fruits that are beginning to go off in a mid-neap or something like that. Not a disqualifier by any means. It's really quite nice for that. It adds a nice component to it that gives it just that little bit of edge that elevates it as far as I'm concerned. And this one, I think, which I like really a lot, I'm going to score 87 points, and I can't recommend it enough. It might even go higher. Perhaps it should be an 88 or something like that, because of its originality and because I haven't tried something precisely like this before. The notes are really well dialed in, and there isn't that mishmash of amalgam that doesn't allow anything to play properly. No. In this case, all of the bits and pieces are really distinct, very precise, and they support each other in a way that you don't often see. The finish in particular is really quite nice, but perhaps at 52%, you can expect that, and you do get a bit more of the fruits and the sweet and sour notes coming in the background. The 4-year-old is probably the most complex of the lot. Yeah, it has a certain fruit liqueur taste to it. Again, we have the slightly sour cherries, you have raisins, you have vanilla, you have cinnamon, cumin, herbals, parsley, dill, that kind of thing. Again, the leather's there, a little bit of smoke, a little bit of Laban Danish cookies or oatmeal cookies with raisins in them. That's actually what I'm thinking about. Or perhaps ginger snaps, something like that. There's a bit of sandalwood down there in the background, which is really quite pleasing. This one, I probably wouldn't go higher than 86. I'm not sure why. This is a completely, purely personal preference. I just happen to like that 18-month a little bit better. I think that somehow it hits that perfect midpoint that the two extremes of the 4-year-old and the unaged, right, have in their individual ways. But this one, the 18-month, is a synthesis of both, and I like it just a little bit better. So 84, 87, 88, just about 86, which is, of course, very close to that one. And I got to tell you, we may not yet see commercial quantities of this stuff in the West, but if you're in a rum fest and you see Mark Schultz, and if you are able to try some of this stuff, get samples of it from one of the European online stores, or even a bottle, God help me, then you wouldn't go far wrong from trying it. These guys are a distillery to watch. I know this is a bit long, but when you've got 3 rums, you've got 3 rums, you got to talk about them all. So I'll leave it there, and I will talk to you again about the next one later. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.